government lacks the intelligence to run itself, the capacity to run itself. I'll go back to its very recent encounter with the judiciary. And one argument I've always held is that you can't engage an institution so academic as the judiciary and not expect a sound and robust response. On the 7th of October, 7th and 8th of October, judges were raided in an action by the DSS. On the 11th of same October, the NJC, after 2-3 days of deliberation, met and released a very robust statement. By the 24th, the NJC had rolled out a national judicial policy, spelling out how it wanted to reform itself. Now, a question that you would want to ask is, we agree that corruption is the bane of any nation. There's corruption in the judiciary, there's corruption in the legislature, as espoused recently by the Jibrin revelations. There's corruption in the executive, because we've had several corruption instances. In fact, just recently, the Ekiti State House of Assembly petitioned the EFCC for a minister in the executive. So there's corruption everywhere. One thing you must do if you want to fight corruption is fight it intelligently and fight it with a lot of competence. The laws, so to say, to arm yourself to fight corruption are not there. We are talking about the Process of Crime Act. Again, you are relating that to the amount of money recovered. We don't even have a Process of Crime agency that manages whatever we've recovered as stolen loot, assets. Who manages these monies? If there are assets like hotels, which government agency like the AMCON, which manages failed assets, which government agency is responsible for managing these assets until whatever trial you want to put in place, you can put it in place and finish that trial and continue. Look, even with these monies that are recovered, we can use them as, if you have money in your bank can allow you loan on that money you have. So the government can actually even take loans based on the guarantees of these monies that they say they are recovered. But again, there's no credible economic intelligence that is being presented to Nigerians. Why I use the distinction between the judiciary's action is that it has come out clearly to state how it wants to run itself. Can you tell me for a fact, and agreeing with Mr. Showmi there, can you tell me the economic policy of this government today that will lead us out of the recession? We kept hearing different stories. Go back to the Minister of Finance. In April, she said they were injecting 370 billion into the economy. In July, they were injecting 470 trillion. Wow, by October, we have spent 3.7 trillion out of our 6.2 trillion budget. Amanda, can you tell me anywhere in the country you can physically say 3.7 trillion has been spent? But this is what they are coming to tell Nigerians. Let's even take the financial plan of the government, which is the budget. The first budget that was submitted to the National Assembly, that is where we should have seen the dangers that were coming. That budget was fraught with a lot of inconsistencies. It was termed a padded budget. The president didn't come out. In fact, that's another thing. The executive hardly fails to come to take responsibilities for action. Till today, nobody has taken responsibility from the executive or even been sacked or resigned. All we hear is a deputy director. Is that what we want to hear for our budget that was padded? Now, let's look at even the implementation. We're in at the end, today is the 30th of October. Can you tell me that the 2016 budget, you have felt the impact of that budget? Even as a news agency that channels is, have they felt the impact of that budget? Have Nigerians been able to say that they have a government that is responsive to them? What we see with this government is more of chasing of media trials and a lot of things gone wrong. I want to use the example given by Soto, a Supreme Court justice, one of the justices that gave a dissenting judgment in the Al Gore versus Bush trial. He said very recently that the start and end of anarchy is where one arm of government begins to assert enough authority that it wants to take control of all arms of government and says, just give me power and see what I will do. That was what led to the fall of the great Roman Empire.
All
because
right,
the emperor at that time sought to have so much power.
Just a moment, Anthony. Let's get some other perspectives into this discussion. Chief Adebanjo, the Southeast was left out of the monies that the federal government seeks to borrow. From the request for the borrowing, the federal government is seeking approval from the National Assembly with agitations from IPOB. We have several agitations from that part of the country. What steps should the federal government be exploring? You are a key supporter of restructuring. What are the steps? What direction should the federal government be looking at to avoid further agitations?
Before I answer that question, there's one question about this corruption you are evading. How much have we collected? From whom? There's corruption there, if you don't know. They only say we got so much from some people. They didn't mention. Suppose they got 700,000 and they claim they have got only 300,000. Who is to know now? That is a silent, the collection that is not transparent. We must know that. If we know that, we got so much from this, then can confirm that. Don't forget, one of the judges that has been accused of corruption says, I don't know where they get the money from. And he says it's from his house. Now he says, you have collected so many million from some people, you don't mention them. I want their name to be mentioned. And how have you been spending them?
Okay, before we take another moment, I was going to ask Mr. Showomi, it's one thing to cry wolf, it's another to seek a way out. What direction should the government go? You hold a thought. Well, when we come back, you answer that question. Please stay with us.